So when I heard Vrains was coming to Duel Links, this wasn't exactly a deck I thought I'd be making a video on, especially considering Rod is still on the limited list. God, I still don't know why that's actually on there. I just assumed someone at Konami had their lunch money stolen by a Dark Magician player or something. So apparently the latest box came with some new Dark Magician support, and no, I'm not just talking about Eternal Soul. We also got Pot of Duality, which is not only a great draw card for Dark Magician, but it's also a great way to trigger your opponent's Vietnam flashbacks.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
So it's been almost a year now since I've bothered to do the King of Games grind, simply because I just cannot be asked anymore. And honestly, I still can't be asked. But the funny thing about this Dark Magician deck was, it kind of just accidentally got me King of Games. So here's today's deck list. Now just a reminder before I go through the deck list, if you're enjoying today's video and want to see more content just like this in the future, especially new world content, as I still have quite a few videos planned around the new world. Also, if you happen to be a returning viewer, as apparently only about 50% of the people watching this or even subscribed to the channel, yet nearly all of you are returning viewers who have seen my stuff before. So if you find yourself keep coming back to the channel and want to see more content just like this in the future, remember to hit that like button down below and consider subscribing to the channel. Alright, let's get into the deck list. So obviously this deck list probably looks pretty familiar to most of you, as most of the cards in here are just the same Dark Magician cards you would have seen already, but there are two brand new additions to this deck list that make it so much powerful than it was. It's actually a very relevant deck now. So the first one is going to be your Eternal Soul. This card makes every Dark Magician in your monster zone unaffected by your opponent's card effects. That's insane. Basically, if your opponent has Floodgate Trap Off, they have Book of Moon, basically any of the generic macro stuff that normally would just make your Dark Magicians completely worthless, you don't have to worry about it anymore. They are completely immune to it. This card then has two effects you can use, but only one of them per turn. The first one is special summon one Dark Magician from your hand or graveyard, and keep in mind, this is a continuous spell, so you can keep doing this every single turn, which is amazing, because basically, it's just a stronger version of what Navigation used to do, and since Navigation you can only run at one because you have two rods, it essentially just replaces the two copies you're currently missing due to the limitations. So this deck just became a hell of a lot more consistent, and lost a lot of its bricking factor, because you can just grab this card instead now. The second effect of this card allows you to add one Dark Magic attack or 1000 Knives from your deck to your hand. Now I'm not personally running either of those cards, so I don't particularly think they're all that great, and generally you're going to be summoning Dark Magicians every single turn anyway, so you won't ever get to use those effects, and they just make your deck a bit more bricky. But if you are going to run any of them, I do think 1000 Knives isn't that bad, and has its kind of arguments for it, but personally I don't think you should be using that effect, and I don't use it personally. Now this card does come with one very major downside we have to mention, and that is, if this face-up card leaves the field, destroy all monsters you control, which will happen quite a bit. If your opponent runs MST, if they run Cosmic Cyclone, if they run any of the generic removal for your back row, I'm afraid this deck list does sometimes just fall apart due to your own continuous trap card. But I'll take that downside any day over just being able to run basically 3 copies of Navigation again, because now this deck list is actually playable. The other major addition to this deck list is of course going to be your Pot of Duality. This card is bonkers for this list. Excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and add one of them to your hand. Also after that, shuffle the rest back into the deck. You activate one per turn, and you cannot special summon during the turn you activate this card. So essentially, this card lets you look at the top 3 cards and add one of them to your hand at the cost of not being able to special summon on that turn, which sounds like a pretty hefty cost, but in a deck list where you don't actually special summon on your first turn, this card is just mental. Remember, this is Duel Links, you only have a 20 card deck list, and you already start with 4 of them in your hand, and on top of that you now have Pot of Duality to look at the next 3 and grab one of them. The consistency of this deck list is absolutely mental now. Also, this style of not special summoning during your first turn means you can simply cut your Apprentice Illusion and run the skill A Trick Up Your Sleeve, which simply just puts Dark Magician in your opening hand. That's basically what the skill does. It does mean that you can't special summon again on your first turn, but we don't care about that. We're just summoning Dark Magician on your opponent's turn to then banish things using Circle, same as your normal strategy. Now there is one more addition I want to mention for this deck list, as it is quite an important one. I think everyone should run it, and that is of course going to be your Imduk? I have no idea how to pronounce this, I'm just going to call it Duck. Duck takes one normal monster except token, so essentially it can take Dark Magician. And keep in mind, using this card to link into your Dark Magician will put Dark Magician in the graveyard, so you can activate your Eternal Soul to revive it from the graveyard and activate your Circle again. So keep that in mind, that's one very important part. It's actually the most important part of running this card. But this card does have another use as well. And that is, at the start of the damage step, if this card battles an opponent's monster this card points to, you can destroy that opponent's monster. So keep in mind, whatever your opponent's board currently is, see if they happen to put any cards in front of the extra monster zones, because then you can potentially link summon out this card, and then pop whatever card they have, if they happen to put it in front of a zone. But that doesn't come up too often. Generally, like I mentioned, this card is going to be used as a link 1 to put Dark Magician in the graveyard, to give you another pop for your circle with your Eternal Soul. Alright guys, that's going to do it for the decklist portion of the video. The rest of the video will be gameplay showcasing this decklist in action, and without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, let's get into the replays. So today I have actually got 6 replays to show you guys, which I'm going to jump straight into because that's a lot more replays than I normally show you guys, but I literally just couldn't choose a replay to cut, because I had to keep the COG rank up game in there, because you have to show off the rank up game. But yeah, so I have a bunch of replays to show you. They're all pretty good, except the last one, which is pretty mediocre, but it's the COG rank up, so I have to show it. Alright. So this one was against, I think, Metal Foes, which is quite a competent deck in Duel Links, so a lot of these replays are actually going to be showing some competent decks that I'm beating, so should give you a good idea of how good this deck is. So starting off with a standard combo of Circle, Navigation, and your Dark Magician, nothing new here. He tries to use his dude, of course we're going to be banishing that immediately, because we don't want that going off. In hindsight, probably should have Book of Mooned it, since the banish effect could have hit the back row as well, which then becomes relevant in a second. But it doesn't particularly matter. I just like to take the Book of Moon over it. Uses his Metal Foe stuff, gets out 1 scale. Uses a fusion, goes into his dude. I'm going to be setting that face down before its effect, because it's not a non-summon effect, it's one you have to activate. Summons out another monster. This time getting a monster bigger than my Dark Magician, which is kind of annoying, but not too bad. Because we hit a Spellbook of Prophecy. Oh, yes, Prophecy to search for our Spellbook of Secrets, to then search for our Knowledge. Knowledge can contribute the Spellbook dude to then draw 2 cards, hitting the Eternal Soul, which is very important. So now Soul can bring back the dude from the graveyard and start getting more Circle procs again. We're going to exceed something. It's probably the only important exceeds monster in this deck. All the other ones don't really matter that much. The Ebon Illusion, which can then summon out a Dark Magician straight from deck to banish a card on the field. Eternal Soul brings back the card we just attached, and yeah, he's just dead. Alright, second game. So you also notice that a lot of these games I do happen to go first. That's just because that's when this deck wins the most. So yeah, if you get lucky with first, you're going to be winning a lot more. Going second isn't too bad, it just means you have to wait a turn, which is a little bit sketch, but it's not too bad. Especially if your opponent is having like quick play destruction effects, which aren't that common in Duel Links anyway. Outside of course, your MST. Alright. Which, by the way, speaking of MST, we're playing against a deck that can literally search it. I don't think we have, like, any place winning this game. And this guy just... I don't know how you lose this. Literally a searchable MST, the counter to this deck list. But anyway. Try to activate my dude to use his effect. He negates it, but thankfully I actually have another secrets. I actually had the secrets in hand already, so I can just search for my knowledge that way. Tribute, draw 2, activate my Duality, look at the top 3. Get a Book of Moon. Activate my Circle and pass the turn. So didn't hit anything on Circle. He swings in with this card, which does in fact destroy my Circle, so I can't use it. But that's fine. I didn't really want to summon out my, or activate my Eternal Soul, because then this thing could have destroyed that instead, which would have been even worse. I could have Book of Moon this, but I felt that was a wasted book, especially considering I had another Circle in hand anyway. He then activates MST, destroying his own field spell, because he thinks he can go for lethal here. He thinks he could have gone for lethal. Instead of hitting the back row and Dark Magician, he decides to hit his own thing, which, hey, props to him, I guess. Gets out his 2 cards, I activate Book of Moon so he can't lethal me. Now, I could have activated my Eternal Soul here, but I kind of wanted to wait until I had my Circle on field again, so I'm just going to take the 1600. Activate my Circle. Now I can activate my Eternal Soul to bring back my Dark Magician from hand. Banishing a card on the field. Then we'll summon my Magician's Rod, searching for Navigation. Swinging in, trading them off, beating over his monster. Celestial, drawing a couple of cards. Search for a Stratos. At this point, we got rid of it. We've basically dealt with his entire game plan, so we can't really do a whole lot here, so I'm not too worried anymore. Summon out 3 Dark Magician, all are unaffected by the back row, by the way. Gonna Exceed Summon into my Illusion. Normally, you wouldn't want to Exceed Summon into Illusion that often, unless you actually have another Dark Magician on board already, when you have Navigation in the graveyard, because obviously Navigation can't negate unless there's a Dark Magician on the field. And I technically nearly threw here because I actually wanted to summon back a card with Eternal Soul, but I can't summon anything back if I can't use Illusion's effect, which I can't use because I have all my Dark Magicians on the field already, so almost a throw here. Probably should have Link summoned here instead, so then I could have activated Eternal Soul, brought the Magician back, and blah blah blah. But in this case, didn't particularly matter. Because he tributed his own monster himself. What a nice guy. And he's gone. Just a casual attempted throw there. Nothing to worry about. Alright, on to number 3. Alright, so this was the Tellarknight, I think? The Tellarknight gameplay? This was a great back and forth, this one. Also showed the power of DD Crow quite a bit. Because you'll notice I'm running 2 DD Crow in this, which I think you should be running in a lot of decks at the moment, because it just happens to be a great counter to a lot of things, including the latest Salad addition to the game, so... Alright, searching for my Prophecy, we've seen all this before. Summon this dude, search for your dude, tribute him off, draw 2. Set up your board, which in this case was a massive brick. Actually, you missed really hard on this. But we do have 2 DD Crow, so... And a Book of Moons, we have some disruption. Alright, start of my turn, I'm going to start by trying to Book of Moon this. This is because I know what kind of matchup this is. I know this guy needs a face-up Tellarknight to activate his counter trap, which he then activates because he wants to draw a card, so... For a Duality, going to be looking at the top 3. Hitting a Circle, which isn't bad, because we already have a normal summon to search for our thing anyway, even if we didn't hit Eternal Soul. He had a Fiendish for this, but we hit Eternal Soul off the other one anyway, so it didn't matter. MST, thankfully, hitting this and not hitting my Eternal Soul. Thank God, because that would have made this a lot harder. Tries to use Altair, but we actually have a DD Crow for that, so good shit. Eternal Soul, summoning my dude from hand, beating over his dude. Special summons, tries to use Monster Reborn. Again, I try to DD Crow. Unfortunately, he absolutely outplays the shit of me here. Activates his counter trap to negate it, which he can then summon back the monster he just sent with this Altair he just summoned, so absolutely outplayed the shit of me here. Oh, shit out of me here. Alright, there's my stream alerts going off. Whatever. Activates this card, sending everything back to the hand, including the Eternal Soul, which nukes my own board, and then he activates the effect and discards the Eternal Soul as well, so he got pretty lucky here. But thankfully he can't lethal me, so I have a chance to come back. Even with this Fiendish Chain negate, I still have a search off Circle, so I could still hit a special summon effect, which of course we do. Summon back the Dark Magician, banish his card. Summon another one, banish his other card, and he is donezo. Alright, next one. So I forget what this person was playing. Was this the... Oh yeah, this is the Pendulum matchup. This was a very interesting game, because he summoned the same Xyz monster as I have in the deck, which, as I'll show you in a second, is kind of a counter, because you can't actually attack with your Dark Magician when they have that on the field. Because it doesn't specify your normal monsters, it just says normal monsters, so... Either way, we'll show you in a sec. Alright. So unfortunately going second here, not the greatest, sets a bunch of shit. That's my Circle, he has MST, so doubly not good. DD Crow is also a terrible card in this matchup, so there's literally nothing. And then he summons Ebon Magician. Now keep in mind, this card, it says in it that when a spellcaster type normal monster declares an attack, not when yours declares an attack. So if I try to swing with my Dark Magician with this on the field, it will literally banish my cards, so it's a bit sus. He swings in, he goes to banish my Navigation, I activate the effect in response. Unfortunately losing my Navigation, but that's fine. It's better to do it then in reaction to him targeting it, rather than trying to use it beforehand and have him banish this card instead, because I want this on the field still, so... Alright. Going to Exceed Summon into my Ebon. He then activates his Trap Hole, which is not good. I think I had to do that there, because like I said, if I just had the 2 dudes on field and swung in with them, he would activate this card's effect and then banish my Eternal Soul, and I would have lost my entire field, so... yeah, I think I had to do that there. Otherwise, if I didn't activate the Eternal Soul, he would then banish my other Dark Magician, because I need this to then protect it. I guess I could have used it in response to this thing's activation, which would have been fine. I just went for the Xyz play here. Yeah, either way, it didn't really matter. I take Book of Moon, turning his thing face down before I can use it. Thankfully, he doesn't have another null monster in the deck, which is Rod searching for my circle. Special summoning it from hand. Banishing his back row, he floodgate trap holes, but thankfully my cards are immune thanks to Eternal Soul's effect. He then MSTs it and I lose my entire board. But Pot of Duality to the rescue, hitting myself another Eternal Soul. Could have grabbed the Rod, but I was scared he might have another negate here. And then he concedes. Alright. Bit of an interesting game, that one. I think I misplayed a little bit, but that's alright. Alright, final 2 replays. Alright. So this was a Cyber Dragon player. Alright. Thankfully, I think we went first here. Alright. Pot of Duality, looking top 3, looking for... well, I guess Spellbook of Secrets isn't that bad. Didn't hit the circle, I don't think, but that's okay. Activating the knowledge, getting rid of 2, or drawing 2, sorry. Getting hold of Book of Moon, which is okay, at least we have some kind of disruption. It's not circle, but it's better than nothing. Gonna wait till he gets out to level 5, set 1 face down so he can't Xyz summon. Then Eternal Soul summoning my monster so he can't attack me directly. Protects this monster, go trade. Book of Moon, oh sorry, Monster Reborn brings back Nashta, which then brings back the card we just destroyed. So now he can go into his rank 5, the Nova. Nova brings back one of the level 4s, uses it to then boost his monster, beat over my dude, but we don't care too much because we have an infinitely recyclable Eternal Soul, so we can just keep bringing back our dudes. Just massively outvaluing this guy. Xyz summoning into Ebon, summoning out my Dark Magician, so we can banish his card, and he's just done. It's a really good outvalue game, that one. Alright, final replay. This was the King of Games rank up. So not the most exciting replay, okay, I'll be honest, this replay was pretty shit, but it's the rank up game from Legend 5 to COG, so we had to show it. But yes, my opponent, who's, judging by his name saying beginner in it, he's literally a beginner, I'm pretty sure. He's in Legend though, so better than nothing, I guess. This is end of month Legend, so it's not exactly the greatest decks around. Alright, sets 1, sets 2. Pot of Duality. Hitting a second Eternal Soul, which is pretty good because that means if he pops the first one, we still have another one. Magical Circle, searching for navigation, so we're going to set that instead. This is Mask Change now for some reason, then adds the Mask Change back with his Mask Charge. Absolutely insane gameplay going on here. Navigation, summoning out my dude. We'll watch the animation again. Just one last time before the video ends. Targeting his monster to banish. Getting rid of that Koga. Going back to my turn. Then going to be Link summoning. To put a Dark Magician in the graveyard ready for Eternal Soul. By the way, this is a great animation, the new Link animation. Summoning Eternal Soul, activating the, summoning Dark Magician, I mean, using the Eternal Soul. He Mask Change, meaning he actually had the Fire Mask Change target in his extra deck, which I was already impressed by, because who the hell runs that card? But anyway, apparently he has that in his extra deck. But I negate it with my navigation, and that means his game's basically over. And there we go, King of Games. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, remember to leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, hope to see you guys in the next one. Laters.
Hey, big brother, can I watch SpongeBob?
Shut up, Mokuba. I'm busy flagging YouTube videos to compensate for the fact that I have an extremely small penis.
Oh.